Hello, everyone. I am Lisa, and I'm one of the co-founders of Dig Ventures. So yes, you can blame me for being partly responsible for making all of this happen. I hope this finds you all happy and healthy and actually at home and ready to have some fun with us on this pub quiz. So before I move on and get down to the questions, because I know you're all anxious about that, I should introduce this very special someone here who you may see moving in and out of frame. Actually, this is Monty, who is our junior assistant site dog. He was recently promoted from trainee, but he hasn't actually been spending all that much time in pubs, so being a part of this pub quiz is actually part of his CPD. So anyway, I hope you are ready to grab something refreshing and nice and snuggle up and get ready to have some fun. So before we get started, I thought I would let you know what the categories are because I know that some of you out there are working in teams and you're going to have some people who are good at this, some people are good at that, and you want to sort of be ready for who's going to be able to plug in where. So we're going to be starting with ancient Rome, then ancient Greece. We've got a category on DV trivia. Then there's going to be spoil heap, which is bits and bobs of this and that. Big dig energy, and then finally a mystery archaeological quote. So get your thinking caps on, get your score sheets ready, and let's do it. Okay, here we go. It's ancient Rome. I know that some of you out there are like, yes, Rome, I love Rome. Personally, it's not my period, but I get it. So let's have some fun. Anyway, so the remains of Roman polymath Pliny the Elder, and pardon me for my pronunciation, A, I'm American, B, I might just not know how to say some of these things. Anyway, the remains of Pliny the Elder were found as part of the excavations of which internationally important archaeological site? Right, so moving swiftly on, what is the name for the town or neighborhood precinct that surrounds a Roman fort? We often find these areas in our excavations here in the UK. So what is the name for the precinct or neighborhood that surrounds a Roman fort? Next. Which city was destroyed in 146 BC by the Romans at the end of the Third Punic War? The archaeological remains of this city are now a World Heritage Site and well worth seeing. Next question. This one's in two parts, so you'll get a point for each part. What is the name for the very special, rare color of dye that was used to border Roman togas for the elites? And what is the very specific evidence of its unique manner of production that we can find in the archaeological record? So first, what is the name of that color that would normally border the garments of Roman elites? And what traces does the unique method of its production leave in the archaeological record? Last question in this category, and it's a good one. So there's been an excavation underway since 2004 to find the tomb of which famous Roman general and his consort, Queen Cleopatra. You can get a bonus point if you know what city they're meant to be buried in. Okay guys, welcome to round two. In this round, we're talking about ancient Greece, which I personally would have liked to have spent some time in, but hey, what can you do? So our first question is about a sort of personal hero of mine. And so the question is, what ancient Greek leader's horse was named Bucephalus, that's how we say it over here, but I suppose in Greece you might say Bucephalus. Either way, whose horse was it? And you get an extra point for this one if you know what Bucephalus means. So our next round is a picture round. So have a nice look at this beautiful place. It's kind of an old picture, but for those of you who know what you're looking at, you'll know what you're looking at, I suppose. Anyway, humor me and let's give it a go. But what is the name of this site and who was the archaeologist who first excavated here? He's someone who's responsible for quite a lot of archaeology, quite a lot of discoveries, I guess you could say, but how archaeologically they were is debatable, but we can talk about that later. So our third question is something a little bit less archaeological, I suppose, although it was found as part of an excavation. What is the name of this absolutely stunning, mind-boggling, fantastically, ridiculously amazing ancient Greek sculpture? And again, question number 4 is things that were found in excavations. And again, just a piece of art that I think is really, really powerful and I could stare at for hours on end. But this beautiful fresco of a fisherman was discovered as part of an excavation at which ancient Greek site? And by the way, thumbs up for the whole Greek nudity thing. It's cool with me. Anyway, this beautiful fresco of a fisherman was found at which ancient Greek site, which is a place of long-running excavations. I've visited. It's mind-blowing. You've got to go. Well, I mean, eventually, obviously, when we can all travel again, you've got to go. Okay, and then we are on our final question for this round. And again, there's a picture here for you, so have a look. This is one of the most famous archaeological artifacts ever found in Greece, or really anywhere from the ancient world. So what is this amazing invention? Here we are already in round 3, and I don't know about you guys, I'm a bit relieved about that because I'm getting down to the bottom here, and after this round we're going to have a bit of a break, top up our glasses, get some snacks, hang out, have a breather. Anyway, so this round is DV Trivia. So for those of you who have been following us for a while, hopefully you'll be able to get some of these right. And if you haven't, then, maybe it'll point you in the right direction to learn a bit more about what the heck we're doing around here all the time. So our first question in this round is actually about this thing over here. It's a 2-part question. So what is this thing over here, and on which DV site was it found? I hope you guys are liking my dancing anyway. I just couldn't sit here for like 15 seconds and wait, so I thought, do a little mashed potato. So question number 2, for those of you who've been following us for a while, you might know the answer to this one, but in which 2 countries has DV run excavations outside of the UK? We've been lucky enough to dig abroad a couple of times. They're both amazing sites. Which 2 countries have we already run excavations in? And actually you can get a bonus point if you know where we were supposed to dig this year in 2020, but unfortunately we've had to postpone until 2021. So where were we headed in 2020 that we're now going to have to dig in 2021? Okay. Ooh, this is a fun one. Which well-known British archaeologist is this? And which one of DV's sites was he a very important part of? So which famous British archaeologist is this, and which one of our sites was he very, very involved with, both in terms of his own work, but also as a part of our projects? Okay, we are now moving on to a super fun one. And something that I'd like to do again, actually. But what was the artifact that DV copied in 100% delicious dark chocolate? What was the artifact that we copied and produced in 100% delicious dark chocolate? Those are really tasty, actually. I think we need to start doing that stuff again. I wonder if we could get somebody to help us out with another chocolate artifact. I think we should do the game piece that we found last year in chocolate. You could do like the little white things on top. It'd be really cute, really tasty. Mm. So we are now at the final question on the DV trivia round before our intermission and a chance to top up our glasses. And that question is, we made a documentary in 2017, of which I am actually really, really proud. And what was the name of this documentary, feature-length documentary that DV made in 2017? If you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. It's a good laugh. Mm, look at that. So that brings us to the end of round three and a chance for us to all go away and top up, get some snacks, have a breather. I'll see you in a minute. Hi everyone, it's snack time. Who's got some good snacks? Mmm, yummy. Got some peanuts here. Mmm. Just gonna sit here and probably basically eat this entire bowl of nuts. But why not, right? I was, before we get started again, I was just thinking that it's all been so crazy lately, and we've been talking a lot about what it's like to be facing the fact that we might not actually be outside digging until the end of the summer, if at all this year. I mean, who knows how things are going to go. And it's funny because I'm sure a lot of you out there who are archaeologists or have done some archaeology at some point, you know, start to get the same feeling, like the weather's getting nicer, it's sunny today, you get that feeling like it's time to be outside doing field work. I'm starting to just feel really weird about being cooped up inside behind my desk. I don't like it. I really, really miss doing the field work, but at the same time, obviously we know how important it is to keep everybody safe and to make sure that this doesn't get any worse than really it is already. But if you had field work scheduled for this year and it's been canceled, like I totally feel you, because it's driving us crazy as well. But you know, we're doing what we can, and I hope that for those of you who are missing your chance to do some digging this year, that you'll join us on the How to Do Archaeology course, which we're offering for free. It will get you outside doing stuff in your back garden, and if you don't have a garden, there's still plenty of stuff to try at home to help brush up on your field skills and maybe be ready for things when it's time to get going again, which, I mean, fingers crossed, but I really, really, really hope that we're going to be able to work at Lindisfarne in September. I didn't realize it, but that place has really, over the last 5 years, totally captured my imagination. It's captured my heart. It's this tiny island. For those of you who don't know, it's a tiny island in the middle of the North Sea, basically between the UK and the European mainland. It's, you know, cut off from the mainland UK twice a day by the tides, and we've been working there excavating an early medieval abbey since 2016. And it's just one of those places that's totally gotten under my skin. And you know, if we have to go a year without digging there, I mean, obviously we'll all survive, but it'll be really, really sad. Not only for us, but you know, for all the people from all over the world who were going to come and join us there. So I'm crossing my fingers that we might at least still be able to dig at Lindisfarne this year. So who knows? We'll see. Anyway, I think that's about it. I'm just about done with my peanuts. I've got a nice refresher. I'm got 2 limes on the go here. Things are looking up. So it's time to get started with round 4. Round 4, which is Spoil Heap. I hope that I've got some turns and twists in here that will keep you guys excited and interested. And also maybe give you a little bit of something to think about. But anyway, here we go. First question. In 1911, the archaeologist Hiram Bingham discovered what lost city? In 1911, Hiram Bingham discovered what lost city? I've been wondering if I should carry on with my dancing in between rounds. I don't know if it's like fun or if it's distracting, if it's a bit lame, you know. I don't want to embarrass people, you know, or myself really, but somehow I feel like sitting here is worse. Don't know. Why don't we just move on to question 2? All right, question 2. Which famous archaeologist introduced the concept of seriation? So which famous archaeologist introduced the concept of seriation? If you don't know what seriation is, this is probably going to be a really hard question, but hey, give it a crack. All right, I bet you guys didn't think I was going to let this whole quiz go by without at least one time team question. In fact, I did struggle to keep it down to just one because I know how many of you out there are massive time team fans. We meet you all the time. We know you're out there, guys. So this one is for you. But I looked and looked and looked and thought and tried to figure out something that might at least stump you, because I know all of you who are time team fans know so much about the show that you'll probably get it in a heartbeat. But anyway, I tried. So please name all of the original members of the time team who were there for Series 1. So all of the original members of the time team that were there for Series 1. If you don't get all of them, then you get no points. I'm sorry, I'm going to be strict on this. You have to name all of them. Good luck. All right, guys, next question, question 4. This guy, in the film Indiana Jones,
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
What is the first name of the nefarious, evil, very unethical, but let's face it, kind of hot, right, ladies? Baddie French archaeologist. What is the first name of the nefarious, evil, extremely unethical, but basically very hot French archaeologist who, as we all know, his last name was Belloc? Okay, question 5 in the Spoil Heap round. This is a big favorite of mine because for those of you who don't know me very well, I am a huge nerd. Yes, it's true, I am a nerd. That is a hill that I will die on. And this is a very nerdy question, so hey, I'm gonna bring it. But anyway, in Tunisia, there is an archaeological site that has a direct connection to Star Wars. That's right, 2 of my loves together, archaeology and Star Wars. What is the name of the archaeological site in Tunisia with a direct link to the first ever Star Wars film? I haven't been there yet, by the way. It's definitely on my bucket list, though. Someday. Hopefully. Okay, we are now into round 5. Round 5. This is definitely the home stretch, guys, so I hope you are ready and you have your thinking caps on. I'm very excited because our junior assistant site dog has come back. Monty has come back to spend this round with us, and I'm just gonna sit here and while you guys work hard and basically give him cuddles. So this is a picture round, and we're gonna put up all of them one after the other. So just give your best guess of which archaeological site you're looking at. So the round is called Big Dig Energy, and these are big digs, big famous digs actually, and so your job is to tell us what the name of the site is, and you get a bonus point if you know who actually excavated it. So what is the site, and what is the name of the person who excavated it? Take it away. has really floofy ears too. Check this out. Look. Okay, that should just about do it. I think you've had enough time to look at the sites. So that means we are into our final question, which is a mystery archaeological quote. It's another one of those things that I sort of heard years ago and I just thought was so brilliant. I believe that archaeology, is the sort of foundation of all the other cultural sectors. When you look at dance, when you look at film, when you look at theater, and you look at fashion even, they're constantly taking their inspiration from the past. And of course, archaeologists, we are the sort of translators who are standing at that edge and moment of discovery, helping to help other people really understand what it is that and how it is that humanity has developed. And so whenever I find a quote that makes that connection, I get really excited because, again, as I told you, I'm a huge nerd. So anyway, I'm going to read you a quote, and then you've got to tell us who is the person that said it. So here's the quote. For archaeology, being a science is neither good nor bad, but a fact simply. Its value depends entirely on how it is used, and only an artist can use it. We look to the archaeologist for the materials, and to the artist for the method. Indeed, archaeology is only really delightful when transfused into some form of art. So a wonderful quote, and do tell us who you think said it. So Monty and I are gonna just head off over there for a second, check some stuff out, maybe sniff some things, think about stuff, and then we'll be back to tell you the answers. Okay, it's answer time. This is the best bit, right? So you get to find out how smart you are, how much you know, who is going to win. So important. So our first round was ancient Rome. And let's get started with question 1, which was the remains of Roman polymath Pliny the Elder were found as part of the excavations of which internationally important archaeological site? So for those of you who knew this, it's an incredible story, which I'll tell you now. But anyway, the site is Pompeii. And so the story was basically Pliny was a naval commander, and he saw the eruption happening. He was totally fascinated. He rushed towards it to conduct a rescue mission, but also, to get a better look, obviously having absolutely no idea about pyroclastic flow and the fact that he was basically going to be boiled alive by the air once he got there. So that what they think happened is that he got there and he was killed on the beach along with most of his fleet. And in the first years of the 20th century, so very early after the turn of the century, there was a lot of excavations around the area in Pompeii. And there was an engineer there who was sort of a vocational volunteer archaeologist, interestingly, called Gennaro Matrone. And he uncovered around 70 skeletons near the coast. And one of the bodies had like a triple golden chain and a really fancy sword and some other items that basically indicated status. And of course, Pliny the Younger had told the story of the eruption and of Pliny the Elder's, rush towards it and the fact that he never came back. So Matrone made a pretty educated guess that those could have been the remains of Pliny the Elder. And it's kind of a sad story because the educated archaeologists of the time basically laughed it off. They didn't give him any respect for his theory or really take it seriously. So he got angry and sort of sold most of the artifacts except for the cranium and the sword that he had found. Obviously, rules were a lot different back then about selling antiquities. But recently, the cranium has been re-examined, and there's evidence to support that it probably actually really was Pliny the Elder. So that's kind of an insanely fascinating moment when what we know from historical documents or descriptions intersects with evidence that we've found in the ground, and I really love when that happens. So yeah, that's the story of Pliny the Elder. What is it? So squirmy now all of a sudden. Anyway, so the second question was, what is the name for the town or neighborhood precinct that surrounds a Roman fort, which we often find plentiful evidence of these in the UK, Valum, Vicus, or Vino, and the answer is, of course, a vicus. And the picture that you're looking at now is from Old Carlisle in the UK, which is located in the north, and is a really, really good example. You can see the area around the fort, which is called the vicus. There are tons of them all over the country, and there are many of them still under active excavation. It's a really, really good place to find lots and lots of evidence, material evidence of day-to-day life. And question number 3, which city was destroyed in 146 BC by the Romans at the end of the Third Punic War, the ruins of which are now a World Heritage Site, and that is Carthage. So Carthage, for those of you who don't know where it is a suburb in the city of Tunis in Tunisia, northern Africa. And Carthage, back in the day, was widely considered one of the most important trading hubs in the ancient Mediterranean, and was a very, very affluent city. So when they were beaten by the Romans, it was a huge deal, and changed quite a lot of things for people. So question 4 was our 2-part question about what is the name for that really beautiful, very rich purple color that was normally found on the togas of Roman elites, and what is the unique archaeological evidence that its production leaves in the archaeological record. And so the answer for that is, it is of course Tyrian purple, and the evidence that it leaves in the record are snail shells, because you can only produce that specific color of dye by basically harvesting a mucus, disgusting word, but mucus, from the inside of the shell of this snail, which reacts to sunlight, and it has to be boiled, and there's all sorts of processing. But when you find these huge, huge mounds, there's only a tiny, tiny bit that you can extract from each shell. Sorry, it's all this drinking. And they estimate that it took over 250,000 of these snail shells. It's they're called Bolinus brandaris. I think I said that right, Bolinus brandaris. But they estimate that it took over 250,000 of them to produce 1 ounce of dye. So of course the dye was very rare and actually very, very expensive, and therefore reserved for elites. And I did a little digging around to show you guys what other sort of connections, more modern, that we can see with this color purple. And of course, that's where the phrase "taking the purple" comes from, because if you were taking the purple, it meant you were, important enough and wealthy enough to merit the high status garments or jewels or whatever that would be produced by using any quantity of Tyrian purple, and in fact, right down to the UK crown jewels. So there you go. And then our final question in this round. Sorry guys, the dog just wants to go. All right, go ahead. Bye. You don't know what you're missing. Our final question in this round is, an archaeological excavation has been underway since 2004 to find the tomb of which famous Roman general and his consort Queen Cleopatra. And there was a bonus point for knowing the city that they are supposedly buried in. And so the Roman general is, of course, Mark Antony, who was a close friend of Julius Caesar's, and who definitely did not get the memo on mates before dates, because he ended up hooking up with Cleopatra, who was, of course, Caesar's ex and baby mama. So there you go. But, and also the final part of the question is the city where they are supposedly buried is Alexandria. And I have been following this excavation pretty closely because I think it's fascinating, especially with how much of the city that they've discovered, the royal precincts that they've discovered, which are underwater right off the coast. And so Alexander the Great, obviously, who we've already mentioned earlier, or did we, or did I just blow one of my questions? Well, anyway, there's lots of other famous people from the ancient world who might be buried there. So yeah, I'm really hoping that they get some results, so fingers crossed. Right, moving on. I did blow one of my questions, damn. I suppose that's one of the problems when you're doing a pub quiz. Anyway, I'd be rubbish as a quizmaster. Moving on to round 2, the answers for the round on ancient Greece. And our first question, which I just blew, is which ancient Greek leader's horse was named Bucephalus or Bucephalus? And you got an extra point if you knew what Bucephalus means. And the leader is, of course, Alexander the Great, who founded Alexandria. The meaning of the name of Bucephalus is ox head. Apparently, historical accounts describe the horse as having been absolutely enormous, with a giant head, and a very sort of willful way. And Alexander being able to train the horse was the first evidence of this mythological sense of greatness that surrounded him, of how extraordinary he was in every possible way. He was only a child when he was given the horse. So actually, ancient Alexander was so attached to the horse that he named a city after it when the horse died after a battle. And so the horse, they think, is buried in the Punjab province of Pakistan. So there you go. Really interesting fact. I can certainly relate to being attached to an animal like that. I mean, these dogs rule my life. Anyway. The second question is around the site. What is the name of the site? Very, very famous. And who was the archaeologist who first excavated here? And this is Mycenae, which I have been to. It's absolutely mind-boggling. The feeling of sort of walking in and through the Lion Gate just absolutely gave me the complete shivers. It's a really special place. And the name of the archaeologist who excavated there is, of course, Heinrich Schliemann. And the reason that he excavated there is he believed that the Homeric poems, he believed in the historicity. Oh my God, I've got to slow down on this stuff. He believed in the historic facts behind the Homeric poems. And so many of his digs, including the one at what we now know to be Troy, ancient Ilium, were structured around finding the physical evidence of the places that Homer talks about and the events that Homer talks about in his epic poems. And, when I sort of posed the question before, I was sort of saying, it's archaeology, it's a little bit debatable. And that's because he used dynamite on the very bottom layers at Troy. So yeah, using dynamite, not a great way to preserve context. So, Schliemann, yeah, he made some amazing discoveries and things that have added hugely to our knowledge of the ancient world, but no dynamite in archaeology, please. No dynamite. Question 3 was around this beautiful Greek sculpture, which is one of my favorites, which is called the Winged Victory, also the Nike, so either the Winged Victory or the Nike of Samothrace. She was found inside of what would have been a temple complex and is actually a real showstopper. The picture doesn't do it justice. The statue is about 8 feet tall and just absolutely spine-tingling to see her in person. And interestingly, they're not quite sure what's going on with the wings because the feathers are not realistic, so they're not modeled on any sort of bird feathers or other sort of feathers known at the time. So either dreamed up by complete imagination or, who knows what inspired the artist. So it's really, really a beautiful statue. And question number 4 was also around a beautiful piece of art from ancient Greece, one of my absolute favorites. And so the question really was, this beautiful fresco of a fisherman was discovered as part of an excavation at which ancient Greek site? And the name of the site is Akrotiri, and it's on the island of Santorini in the Aegean, also known as Thera, which was the ancient name. It was a Minoan Bronze Age settlement, so sort of around 3000 to 1100 BC, and it was destroyed by the massive eruption that caused the center of the island of Santorini to collapse. So if you've ever been there or seen pictures, and there's a sort of central bay, all of that used to be a cone. There was undoubtedly tons of civilization on the slopes of the volcano, but it blew, and it blew hugely, destroyed Akrotiri and a lot of the other civilizations within striking distance, and buried it in volcanic ash, which has preserved so many, in the same way as Pompeii, so many beautiful artworks, so fresh. The frescoes from the site are absolutely beautiful. Tons of domestic evidence. Interestingly, they have not yet found a burial ground, or they've not found the place where people were undoubtedly trying to leave the island, given a warning that the volcano was about to erupt, but they haven't yet found the area where people might have sort of died as they tried to leave the island. So if they do manage to find that, that will be hugely important for the study of that site. Right, moving on to round 3 answers. This is one of the most famous archaeological artifacts ever found in Greece, or really anywhere from the ancient world. So what is this amazing invention? Right, moving on to round 3 answers. This was the DV trivia round, my favorite, of course. But our first question was, what is this, and at which DV site was it found? And this actually was a very, very, very good day for us. We found a couple of these objects actually on the site. It is, of course, a Bronze Age cremation urn. And this one in question was the first one we found, and I kid you not, guys, it was about that far underneath the soil, and it was a really muddy day. One of our venturers, Rita, if you're watching, hi, had sort of been walking back and forth across this area of the site all day, and it just looked like a jumble of rocks. And the fact that it hadn't been damaged either by plowing or any other sort of intervention across the years is kind of insane. And it was perfectly intact. I mean, completely intact, not a nick on it on anywhere. And we managed to lift the whole thing in one piece and took it out. And I think right now you're probably looking at a really beautiful 3D model of it. We did have the remains of the individual inside looked at. And interestingly, he wasn't local. So he came from a ways away. And we're still having some results looked at on that. And hopefully we'll be releasing more about this person soon. But in the interim, while we're waiting, we did make a virtual museum for all of the amazing stuff that we found on that site. In fact, the site was in 2 parts. There were 2 hoards, and it was a discovery by a metal detector user that first led us to the site, where we worked in partnership with he and some of his colleagues. And you can see everything that they found, which first stimulated us to want to dig on the site. And then, of course, all of the stuff that we found, everything from Bronze Age artifacts, a really beautiful little flower, plus this absolutely stunning Neolithic axe head. Have a look on the virtual museum, and you can see everything there and learn a bit more about that project. It was a wet, windy hillside on the northwest of England, but it was really one of the most thrilling places that we've ever dug, and I would go back there in a heartbeat if we could. So question number 2 was, in which 2 countries outside of the UK has DV run excavations, with a bonus point for identifying the country where we are going to be digging in 2021. We're meant to dig this year, but of course we're needing to postpone. So the 2 places that we've worked outside the UK are the United States, of course, as part of the Digging Darrow project, and the second one is Galicia in Spain on a project called Costa dos Castros. Darrow was a Shaker settlement, and Costa dos Castros was looking at this incredible complex of hill forts up the northwest coast of Spain. Not many people know about it. There's some rock art there as well. Absolutely stunning. And the place that we were meant to be going this year, but now we're going to have to put off till next year, is, of course, Croatia. I was so psyched up for this. Philip, if you're watching, we'll be there. Don't worry. But yeah, so that's on the cards for next year. Hopefully. So question number 3 in this round was, which very well-known British archaeologist is this? And which of DV's sites was he involved with? And so I can hear all of you Time Team people screaming. I can hear you. This is, of course, Francis Pryor. And who could not know that guy? And the site that he was involved with is Flag Fen, which is a Bronze Age wetland site outside Peterborough in the UK that Francis discovered in 1982 on his way to the pub. And Flag Fen was, of course, our first ever project in 2012. And it was the moment that we realized that Dig Ventures was really what we wanted to do with our lives. And I also wanted to share some more pictures with you and a little bit of a story and some fun footage, which in this picture, actually, Francis is standing on a life-size 40-meter across bouncy castle version of Stonehenge. I mean, just let that sink in. It was 40 meters across, bouncy castle version of Stonehenge. It was actually an art installation by Jeremy Deller called Sacrilege, and it made its first stop, basically because we begged, but it made its first stop on its tour of the UK as part of the London 2012 Cultural Olympiad at Flag Fen. So we were just loving it. We were there for the dig, and we had this sort of Neolithic monument, bouncy castle, while we're digging this Bronze Age site. And it was really just a fantastic moment again of those two worlds coming together, of art and archaeology. And what was even better is that it rained, so the whole thing became like this giant slip and slide. There were puddles on it. I mean, people just had such a hilarious, amazing time. And we've got actually some bouncer's eye view footage for you of what it's like to bounce on a life-size Stonehenge. So enjoy. So question 4 in the DV trivia round was, what was the artifact that DV copied in 100% delicious dark chocolate? And of course it was our first ever Anglo-Saxon namestone that we found on Lindisfarne. And I think at the minute you must be looking at a model, a 3D photogrammetry model of the actual namestone. And the version that we made in chocolate, the really interesting thing is we made the 3D photogrammetry model, which was then turned into a silicon mold. So right from the actual archaeological detail, we made a mold and we gave that to a luxury chocolatier, Sarah Hardy, who then basically made chocolates out of it. And the thing that amazed us was that when you looked at the chocolate version, you could actually see the detail and all of the sort of carvings and the name on the namestone better than you could do on the actual artifact. It was something about the way that it came up in relief in chocolate was better than it was on the actual stone. And so we produced it, and it was one of the crowdfunding benefits for our Lindisfarne project for a couple of years, actually. And we did receive some communication from some people who thought it was too beautiful to eat. And there were others who told us that they were just sort of nibbling at it from one end up the side. There were other people who decided to lick all the decorations off first. I mean, it sort of was, inspirational to hear these stories about how people decided to attack their chocolate in different ways. But it was a hit. And actually, we're thinking about maybe doing some more chocolate artifacts in future once, we just sort of get a chance to think about stuff like that again. So stay tuned if you want more chocolate. And then finally, question number 5 was, what is the name of the feature-length documentary that DV produced in 2017? So that documentary, which we made with a PhD student from Southampton called Kate Rogers, who has since gotten her doctorate, good job, Kate, was called The Monk, the Midden, and the Missing Monastery. And it was a bird's eye view. Kate spent a season with us at Lindisfarne, and she had unrestricted access behind the scenes, in the trenches, talking to adventurers. And the documentary is basically what we wanted, a bird's eye view of what really goes on at an excavation. And, TV archaeology is usually sort of not fake, but constructed in a lot of ways. Like Time Team had its Jeopardy with the 3 days, and other people are, you know, always on a hunt for treasure. And we just really felt that the archaeology was enough of its own story that it could tell its own story if you just left it to do that. So we took the approach of being deliberately sort of slow, almost like those that weird Norwegian slow TV where it's just a train going up the coast, you know, and people will watch it all day long, you know, Norway. But so we didn't do a lot of special effects. We didn't do tons of graphics. There wasn't a lot of cuts. It wasn't, you know, let's stimulate the interest somehow by building up an excitement that isn't there, because we really believe that archaeology is exciting enough without all of the bells and whistles. And we love this film. We're really proud of it. And I hope that, you know, you guys will give it a watch now that we're sort of home with a bit more time on our hands. Okay, so we're now into the answers for the spoil heap round. And our first question here was, what lost city was discovered in 1911 by Hiram Bingham? And this one is really famous. It's obviously Machu Picchu. I've never been, but would definitely love to go someday. An interesting thing about Machu Picchu is that you have to sign up in advance, and the government is really, really strict on who can actually go in and see the site. Obviously, they limit tourist numbers, and the waiting list can be months and months and months in advance. But recently, there were the Peruvian government got very upset because there were some tourists in January, actually of 2019, who vandalized the site. I mean, if you can imagine actually going through all the effort to go to a place that beautiful, and they sort of snuck in late at night and stayed overnight, and they vandalized it. And so now the Peruvian government is contemplating closing the site to the public, which I think would just be absolutely tragic. And it just defies my ability to understand why anybody would do something like that. But, you know, there you go. People are really strange. So in our spoil heap round, question number 2 was, which archaeologist introduced the concept of seriation? And you had to choose from Heinrich Schliemann, who we've already heard about, Phil Harding, and Oscar Montelius. And the answer is number C, letter C, Oscar Montelius. And a little point of trivia here, which there's no points for, but I just thought you guys might like to know. Oscar Montelius is the guy whom our little dog Monty is named after. So Monty sometimes gets called Montelius, but only when he's in trouble. But that's where the name Monty came from. So there you go. Nerds. I told you. Nerds. Right. Next question. Who were the original members of the Time Team? Episode 1, Series 1. Who were the original members of the Time Team? What's that you say? I can hear you guys all screaming. I can hear you all shouting the answers out. I knew that you knew. But anyway, it is, of course, Mick Aston, Victor Ambras, Phil Harding, Geraldine Barber, Carenza Lewis, Tony Robinson, and Robin Bush. Mick Aston, Victor Ambras, Phil Harding, Geraldine Barber, Carenza Lewis, Tony Robinson, and Robin Bush. If you didn't get all of them, you get no points. That's it. I told you I was going to be very strict. Next question, number 4. In the film Indiana Jones,
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
what is the name of the baddie? Archaeologist Belloc, and his first name is Rene. And actually, I always think about that scene about the pocket watch when he tries to explain how he and Indy are the same, and Indy's like, no, I'm not having that. I always think about that. That's for people who don't really understand what archaeology is all about. You sometimes meet them and you think to yourself, you're on the wrong side of that equation. Anyway, the final question in this round was an archaeological site in Tunisia that has a direct connection to the original Star Wars film. What is the name of this place? And of course, it's Tatooine, where Luke Skywalker was born and grew up, and, you know, it's so famous. It's, you know, the first scene when Luke is sort of trying to find himself, and he knows that he's meant for bigger and better things. And Tatooine exists. It's a town. It's a place where people still live. And this is a picture of the actual place, which is crazy looking enough. It's so different. It almost looks sort of otherworldly. And then obviously a picture of the movie Tatooine. But you can still see, if you go to visit Tatooine, or so I've heard, you can still see the ruins of the film sets, which have been left basically as an archaeological site. So it's all kind of meta in a way. Anyway, I do hope to be going there someday and to see it for myself. Our final category, Big Dig Energy, was all about big digs, big famous digs. What and where were they and who did them? So I'm just going to put the pictures up one by one here and let you guys know the answers. We're running out of time. My drink is getting down to the bottom again, and I reckon it's probably time to move on. But so the first site in question was Knossos in Crete, which was excavated by Sir Arthur Evans in the early 1900s. Knossos is well worth seeing. It's one of those places where the reconstruction that Evans did, you know, a lot of it is just sort of, well, could be, but he did find some absolutely incredible stuff there. This is a picture of the throne room. It's another one of those places like Mykene and some of the others that I've mentioned where you walk in and you just feel like you're so close that you could just reach out your hand and touch the people of the past. Really absolutely stunning place. This one is Maiden Castle, which of course was excavated by Sir Mortimer Wheeler. And this picture was taken in 1937. This is a really interesting, the boxes were very typical of Wheeler's work at this time. In fact, they're called Wheeler boxes. And this was prior to adopting the open area excavation that we do now. So this was how he controlled his stratigraphy and his contexts. But archaeological technique has moved on since then. However, I'm really attracted to the sort of geometry and the technicality that you can see in this picture. Number 3 was a little bit tricksy. Of course, this is Tanis. The site is Tanis in Egypt, excavated by Indiana Jones and, of course, Rene Belloc. I think they have to take double credit for that one. Indy did his own undercover excavations, but of course, Belloc was the site director, so to speak. A little bit of a trick, but what the heck, why not, right? Number 4 is Çatalhöyük. One of the most frustrating places for me because most of my friends have dug there at some point or other, and they're always like, oh, yeah, you too, you were at Çatalhöyük? Yeah, you too, yeah. It's like this badge of honor, and I sort of am one of the only people that I know in archaeology that hasn't dug at Çatalhöyük, but there you go. It's an absolutely stunning place, so important, and actually it's been excavated for about 50 years, pretty much continuously, with a break in the middle. By James, started by an archaeologist, a British archaeologist called James Millart, and then picked up again in 1993 by Ian Hodder, who at the time was at UCL and is now at Stanford. Now the permit currently belongs to the Turkish government, and I don't know actually if there's live excavations happening there now, though I assume I'll hear in the comments shortly from someone who knows more than I do about it. But this is Çatal, which is of course in Turkey. And then our final one, if you guys don't know this, I'm going to cry because it is our very own excavations at Lindisfarne. And the excavator is a joint project between Dig Ventures and Durham University, whom we're working with Dr. David Petz there. David, I hope you're watching. If you are, shout out, man. Hope to see you in September. Hope you're doing well. And again, one of my absolute favorite places and just a really lovely, fascinating place to dig. Finally, guys, we're on the end now. It was a mystery archaeological quote. So who said this? For archaeology, being a science is neither good nor bad, but a fact simply. Its value depends entirely on how it is used, and only an artist can use it. We look to the archaeologist for the materials and to the artist for the method. Indeed, archaeology is only really delightful when transfused into some form of art. And there's only one human being who could have possibly written that, and it is, of course, Oscar Wilde, king of the dandies, the most brilliant of all brilliant people, the person who wrote that work is the curse of the drinking man, and so many other fantastic things. And I love the fact that he considered archaeology and thought about archaeology and said something brilliant about it. So that brings me to the end of my pub quiz. I hope you guys have had fun. I hope you've learned something. And I hope you will come back and join us for our next one. We've got tons of stuff up our sleeves for the next couple of weeks while we're all at home together. And hope to see you soon. Cheers!